Well, so let me just introduce my guests for the morning. I have Nenyi George Anda, a Deputy Minister of Communications, the man in this is summer green, it's nice attire, and he's also the Member of Parliament for Utu Senya West. Good morning to you, Uncle.
Good morning, Roland. Good morning to your viewers. Good morning to my brother.
I was hearing all your insights all over the airwaves yesterday. That was a good one. They're following that outcome of yesterday's proceedings at the court. But we'll come back and talk about KELNI-GVG and the matters arising. But I have Alasan Suhini also here, Member of Parliament for Tamale North. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Roland.
Great.
Hope you are well.
Yes, there was a press conference that was organized by the minority yesterday.
Right.
The minority, I think, is it the ranking member on the Foreign Affairs Committee and also the Member of Parliament for North Tongue, Samuel Kujetu Ablakwa, was raising allegations on social media. It depends on which side you are reading. Some said it was spurious, some said it was the true situation. But what really was the subject of it?
Well, it was, yes, held under the auspices of the minority, but it was largely addressed by the Volta caucus because the issue, even though is of national concern, it relates much more to the, what we see as attempts to deny people the opportunity to acquire rightful documents that make them Ghanaians in the Volta region.
And those attempts are perceived or real?
Yes, they are real. I mean, as they were, stated at the press conference, you have the Volta region being the only region as we speak that has its birth and death registry closed down for, many months now. And so nobody, in the region, at least through the regional office, can have any birth certificate. Passport office closed down. Yet you are doing a national identification that requires only the two, or largely the two, to be classified as a Ghanaian. And these two offices that would have given people, documents to use to be registered as citizens of the country have been shut down for holy God knows how long now. I mean, how else can you describe that? And you see, sometimes we look at issues in isolation in this country, and that is when we begin to trivialize them when we do. You see, you should not look at the closure of these offices in isolation. You have to look at the attitude of the people in charge over the period. The fact that you had this same party in government, say there were no people, leaders of them say there were no people, for example, in Hohoi, and they did not understand where the numbers during elections come from. You have people who said at a press conference to national, at a press conference on national TV, that the Volta region, the voter register was made up of ghosts from Volta region. Evidence? Really? Did you follow the issues? When they were asked to bring the evidence by the Electoral Commission, what happened? After that press conference that claimed that about 30% of them were foreigners, Togolese, about 70% of them were foreigners. After they had just done work on less than 10%, on the voter register, that they had discovered that about 70% of the 10% work done, less than 10% work done. They abandoned it, Roland. They abandoned it because it was so embarrassing.
Subsequently, a court issue and
no, that was a different issue. The court issue was about people who registered with the national identification, the national health insurance card. It was not related to whether the people in the Volta region, as Dr. Baumia at the time suggested, were foreigners or not. As for that matter, Dr. Baumia abandoned it and did not even want to talk about it again before the elections. When he was confronted, I remember, by our Deputy General Secretary Kokwa Anyidoho to provide the evidence. The Electoral Commission also requested for the evidence, and he had to abandon it. But I'm telling you about the mindset that the people there are not really Ghanaians. And it is perhaps in line with the way some of us are viewed. In fact, you know, a hat like this, some people look at you and say, is he also a Ghanaian? I mean, and that's the thing. That's the thing that as a country, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah fought and fought and fought. And so it is sad.
To various functions.
No, it depends on which group you belong to when you wear it. Then they say, oh, dear, you know, when you are there, then you are, they say, you dear. That's what you hear. That's for you, your eye open, because you are there. But if you are not there, really, is he really a Ghanaian? You know, so I'm saying that, I say it with pain, Roland. I say it with pain that Dr. Kwame Nkrumah had to fight this to integrate us as a country, a unitary state. But in 2018, you still have some people with that mindset that some people are more Ghanaian than others.
You're only raising issues about heads of the birth and deaths not available. Or
that's why I said don't look at it in isolation. Don't. If you look at it in isolation, you will miss the bigger picture.
Right.
But if you factor in, you know, some of these slips, you can call them slips.
Somebody who said
in the abundance of the heart.
These are conspiracy theories.
Call them conspiracy theories. But you see, even the world survives on conspiracy. Everything that has been proven by science started with what could be described as a conspiracy theory. So that is why theories have to be proven. And we are saying that, look, these things that are happening are perhaps intended to disenfranchise people in the Volta region, because the National Identification Authority, remember, also in Parliament, slipped when the boss of the authority came and said that if you did not have the National Identification card, you could not be registered as a voter. Now, the 1992 Constitution clearly defines who conducts or prepares a voter roll. It is the Electoral Commission. So what was in the mind of the National Identification Authority boss to make that slip on the floor of Parliament, that if you don't have this card, you will not be registered as a voter? So call it conspiracy. But when you can see the linkages, that there is an intention to prepare a new voter register, and you will require a national identification card to be registered as a voter. And over the period, you have had this party that is in charge suggest that the numbers in the Volta region are unreasonable and they may be foreigners. And you now have a situation where the documents that will allow people to even get this card, that possibly will make them eligible to register as voters, shut down. For only God knows how long.
But we know the president has been touring the region, and he's been assuring the chiefs that he has no interest in disenfranchising the Voltarians or the Volta region, especially with the redemarcation of regional boundaries, etc. We know that the commission responsible also had done a lot of work. Your responses on what he said, and then we wrap up with this and we'll go on to the next subject.
I think it's quite unfortunate, the angle that he's taking this. And indeed, the Volta region caucus of the minority. From where I sit, I just see this as a bit of a diversionary tactic to take away the successful tour of His Excellency the President in the Volta region. I mean, I saw some great footage of derbers that His Excellency had been hosted to, and some very positive remarks and feedback from the chiefs and people, very prominent chiefs and people of the Volta region, recognizing the good works of His Excellency the President. So I think that this was a failed attempt to dilute the very warm reception that our brothers and sisters in the Volta region had given to His Excellency the President. It is not true that the Volta region office of the births and deaths registry has been closed down. And Roland, this you can easily check. It's not a matter of I say this and somebody else says this. Your production people can easily do this check.
Verify this.
You can easily verify. So it is as he used to say in sexy goddamn song, total. It says total cheat. Is that what he say? So it's a total deception, peddling untruth. I've been told not to say on TV and radio that somebody is lying, but I should say that the person is being economical with the truth. My parish priest called me someday and he's like, George, you know, when you go on radio, the way you tell people that somebody is lying, I don't like it. I said, but the person is lying. You say that the person is being economical with the truth. So I think that the Volta Region Caucus of the minority are either misinformed or they are being economical with the truth. Fact is that the births and deaths registry is facing challenges across the country, and we need to make sure that we address these concerns. It's not an isolated case of the Volta region, as our brothers and sisters on the other side seem to be projecting. There are challenges there that we must fix those. We must address those challenges. But like the president has said, there's absolutely no attempt. There's no interest to disenfranchise anyone. And I got the word right yesterday on the floor of Parliament. A few people were struggling to mention the word disenfranchise. And the fact of the matter is that we are not working. We have no interest to disenfranchise anyone. And about the comments about some people not seeing certain people as Ghanaians, I find that to be quite strange. And I like the way you referred him to when he was making reference to the kind of attire that he was wearing, and you did refer him to the fact that Dr. Baumia dresses like this. Indeed,
or dresses very often.
Indeed, even the majority leader almost always dresses like him. And it's I think some of these things we should take away the negative propaganda. The fine boy with wicked mind thing must stop now.
You see, I agree with him that, look, that wicked mindset of classifying some Ghanaians as less Ghanaians because of that wrong perception must go. But pretending it doesn't exist is not the way to deal with it. It is just like pretending that racism doesn't exist.
You're saying that we still have
yes,
prejudices in our society.
I admire the fact that, you know, the majority leader always dresses like this. I admire the fact that, you know, you are in suit and you look beautiful. I admire the choice that we should all have to dress the way we want and be proud of where we hail from. But the fact that, you know, some of us understand it and embrace it and accept it does not mean that a majority of us still have that warped, backward mindset of thinking that, you know, some people are less Ghanaian because of perhaps where they come from or how they dress and all that. It is still there. Where? And the best way to deal with it
is where?
What I'm saying is that some people still have that mindset.
People like who?
I don't want to
then don't talk about it.
I don't want to do classification.
Because I think
I don't want to do classification. But the point I'm making is that the fact that we pretend it doesn't exist, it's like pretending racism doesn't exist.
Well, Roland, I think that we should be able to distinguish between facts and opinions. I mean, you can have an opinion on the matter, and I will not challenge you on your opinion. You are entitled to your opinion. But when you say something is a fact and you keep on trying to suggest that there's a fact that some Ghanaians see others as less Ghanaian, I think that is most unfortunate. And if indeed this is what it is, you're a member of parliament, please just state exactly where that is happening and let us address the issue. I mean, to be on air and speculating some of these things, do people see you as one of those people? Because you in particular,
can
I finish?
Can I?
No.
You trivialize it when you personalize the discussion.
Can I finish?
I think that is going to spoil the discussion. So let's move on.
You express your opinion on the matter.
You are trivializing it by trying to personalize.
I'm not trivializing it.
We are talking about registering Ghanaians.
If you did, Roland, I believe I have the floor. This situation does exist. Okay,
doesn't it? So you don't believe it exists?
I don't see anywhere where anybody sees a Ghanaian or sees himself as more Ghanaian than anyone else.
Well, the High Commissioner to South Africa is on tape.
That's saying what?
that some people were more Ghanaian than others.
Then did you take him on? I'm not privy to this. Indeed, if a high commissioner of another country,
So I'm telling it by personalized. It's a general
he's talking
concern.
about
I am
George
talking about.
Boating. Is that
Yes.
okay? All right. I think
Let's move on.
that issue was also condemned.
Yes. So I'm saying that some people still have that mind. Move on.
and those people influence the direction of governance.
A high commissioner doesn't.
We have an Accra Human Rights Court yesterday dismissing a suit seeking to stop implementation of the $179 million revenue monitoring contract between the government of Ghana and KELNI-GVG. We have a package for you. Yes, watch it. We'll come back. We'll do some discussion. It's good that the Deputy Minister of Communications is also in the studio.
Sarah Safweje and Maximus Ametogo were seeking to freeze government's efforts to monitor real-time call traffic for purposes of calculating taxes due government. They argued in court allowing KELNI-GVG to do the monitoring will amount to breach of privacy. They maintain the National Communications Authority, Communications Ministry and KELNI-GVG will be connecting to all physical nodes of the mobile network operators, granting them access to monitor voice and other forms of communication. The claims of the plaintiff was challenged by the Communication Ministry, which maintained the current architecture of the platform granted access to only relevant nodes for monitoring traffic, that is, statistics relating to billing and not the actual communication. The regulator also indicated that a filter had been put in place to ensure irrelevant data was not obtained on the platform. The Ministry of Communication also informed the court that the mobile network operators had been granted access to the system to enable them determine independently what data was being monitored at any given time. Delivering his ruling, Justice Anthony Yeboah said it was obvious on the documents before him that the applicants had no personal knowledge of the common monitoring platform. He said they had additionally failed to disclose their source of information and grounds of belief that implementing the deal will amount to a breach of their rights. Justice Yeboah said the evidence provided by the Communications Ministry showed there wouldn't be a breach. He wondered why the telecommunications companies whose networks had been connected to and who are defendants in the case did not challenge the claims by the Communications Ministry. Justice Yeboah said their silence suggested the position of the ministry was unchallengeable. Justice Yeboah dismissed the application for injunction, describing it as lacking merit and peddling of evidenceless fears. Deputy Minister of Communication George Anda told reporters the decision shows government is doing the right thing.
Of course, we do recognize that this is an issue of national interest, and so we congratulate the applicants. I believe that it's just a matter of being misinformed, and clearly in the judgment you could realize that the judge was saying that there was no basis for some of the claims that was informing them.
It's good that the man himself is here. We didn't want to wait for that insert to end. But if you look at what transpired in court yesterday, essentially, what will be some of the main speaking points for ordinary viewers to know?
I think for me, one of the biggest statements that came from the judge was the statement that the applicants were peddling evidence-less fears. And
because they had gone to court?
No, because they were saying that the basis for going to court was the feedback in some aspects of a public debate. Okay, and there was no evidence that their rights to privacy was being infringed upon or was being breached. And Roland, if I may take us a few steps back, specific to these rights to privacy concerns. The law is the law is the law. The law says that when the Minister of Communications writes to the telcos on the direction for the implementation, they have 7 days to go to the High Court if they have any concerns. Now, the Minister instructed for the telcos to be advised with the design that was added to it. There was no response from the telcos. So as far as the process is concerned, that should be taken as good enough to go. However, subsequent to that and the deadline that the minister reinforced, then the telcos came and said they had certain concerns. There was the direction from the minister for the technical people to meet from both sides, or from all the three sides, and a different design was developed. Now, in as much as we believe that the original design did not have the capability of snooping into subscribers' conversations in the broader context, I think that there's one thing that I've learned from my minister, that even when our matter is sweet, we want to be double sure that our matter is sweeter. Okay, so she gave approval for another design which would incorporate the filtration server. Okay, so with this new design, the telcos were confident that their concerns had been addressed. And indeed, in our response to the writ or to the application, we stated all these things on exactly what the law says and exactly what we're doing, and the fact that the system didn't have the capability to snoop onto subscriber calls or WhatsApp messages or text messages. Okay, Roland, you may think that today I am at the ministry, and so it doesn't matter if somebody snoops on somebody's calls, but neither the minister nor I want our conversations to be snooped upon. The president doesn't want his conversations to be snooped upon. So there's no way that we would sit down and implement something that is against the law. Okay, not when we're in power, not when on the unlikely event that we are out of power. So that fallacy, that whole thing was a fallacy. It was a misinformation, and there's no evidence to suggest that this could even happen. I think that the applicants, to a large extent, have been misinformed by the debate out there as to who is shouting out loudest on social media. And I think that we should come down to the technical aspects of the solution and then the actual capabilities of the solution. We are doing nothing but what the law requires, and we are doing it in a win-win situation to make sure that what we're doing is right. Yes, this case has been thrown out. So clearly, there shouldn't be any concerns. And indeed, if you look at the judge's ruling, he has plugged many holes, okay, that makes it almost impossible for any appeal to come. Okay. When it gives any basis for any appeal to come. And it's good to some extent that there's some kind of public interest on this matter. However, we should balance the public interest with the business of governance going on, and we shouldn't have public interest that is ill-informed overshadowing or curtailing the government business taking place. Okay. So yes, it's the case has been thrown out. So far, 2 of the cases that have been dealt with, and I'm sure that within the shortest possible time, we'll be able to address all those issues. I want to assure all Ghanaians, including my brother, that there are no concerns about citizens' privacies or Ghanaians' privacy being compromised. There's absolutely nothing wrong as far as the procurement process is concerned. If you look at the value for money, we're actually delivering on value for money. We're doing a $1.2 million savings every month versus the previous situation. It went through the entire procurement process. And indeed, once we go through the legal processes, I believe that everybody would know that this whole transaction has been extremely transparent, and it is good for Ghana.
Responsible. At least it clears the way. It gives people the mindset that the government is acting based on what its initial words and intentions are. And also, the contract really should have nothing untoward for anybody to get worried about.
Well, I don't want to litigate the large opinion or the opinion that is held by a large or majority section of our population, especially some civil society organizations, that this deal is fraudulent. I mean, I think that it's a position that has been correctly and beautifully espoused by a number of our civil society organizations, and I don't want to litigate it. It is a fraudulent deal, and it is shrouded in a lot of, secrecy, and there are more questions than answers. But to the specific case that was in court yesterday, I just enjoy the games that time plays with all of us. You know.
And what do you mean?
And as a member of the NDC, I couldn't have felt proud than I do now.
Seeing all the things that are playing out.
What is happening today. Do you know this is not the first time a case like this has gone to court? A case where people are made to believe that a contract like this will lead to a government, snooping or eavesdropping on citizens. This is not the first time. And guess who led it the first time? It was our Deputy Finance Minister, Kweku Kwarteng. The same issues he raised are the same issues these gentlemen raised in court with the civil society organizations. They, at the time, convinced the people of Ghana that the NDC government, by the passage of the ICH law, was going to eavesdrop on their conversations. So the lion that you feed, or if you hunt a lion, like they say, if you mount a lion to go for a hunt, the risk is that you will eventually end up in its tummy. So if people of Ghana today are apprehensive and are worried that their calls will be listened to and their messages will be read, who first planted the thought in their mind? And why was it done? I am sure it was just for political purpose. Because if today they have the opportunity and they are telling us there's no cause for alarm, so why did they start the alarm? That is why I say I enjoy the funny games that time plays with us. Kweku Kwarteng at the time.
For the Interconnect Clearinghouse.
For the Interconnect Clearinghouse. He said that that law, if allowed to pass and stand, will make Ghanaians have their calls and text messages listened to by the NDC government.
Can I intervene?
Please, please, please.
Let
me finish and you'll have your time. That's not all, Roland. The board chairman of the National Communication Authority today, Mr. Kweku Sechiado, at the time was the CEO of the Chamber of Telecommunications. In fact, they were part of that suit, and they were raising those same challenges. Parliament even had to set up a committee to have this discussion with all the operators at the time, so that those fears could be allayed. Today, God being so good, and God trying to vindicate the NDC and play games with us, he is the board chairman of the National Communication Authority, and he no longer believes that this will lead to call tapping. He no longer believes that. So why, on what basis?
You mean personally, or you're talking about the institution
no,
that he...
He's with the institution, and if he had a personal reservation, I'm sure we would have heard it by now. He no longer believes that. So I think the logical question to ask is, what has changed? And why did you deceive the people of Ghana that this was going to allow the government then to listen to their calls? Were you doing it based on, ignorance, or you were doing it deliberately? It will be important to at least admit that, look, we didn't have enough information because we're not in government. But now that we are in government, the NDC was right. They were not going to listen to our calls by the passage of this law, even though you had already created that fear and panic. But you see, now, as somebody trying to be objective, I am at a loss as a citizen.
Of
Whether
as to what?
whether the fears are founded or not. Because you see, at the time, I wasn't in government.
Well, they're giving you all the assurances there.
What I'm saying is that at the time I wasn't in government. I was counting on the, assurances that was given by government. The people who were fighting on my behalf as a citizen are now in charge, and they are telling me, without admitting they were wrong, that there's nothing wrong. So I want them to first admit, to give me the assurance that we're wrong. So when they admit that they were wrong, then I can now be sure that, okay, then they were not misleading me. They were not doing it deliberately. It was just out of ignorance. That's the first part of it. Now, if you look at all this contract, I'm happy my brother is here. This whole arrangement, they tell you that it's going to do what? Stop SIM-box fraud.
Can we focus on the privacy issues, because there's not enough time on this matter, and I think that he's going.
Please.
He's going into a different area.
I think that you should allow me to. It's not a different area. It's not a different area. I'm saying that, look, it's going to bring about stop SIM-box fraud, and also ensure that revenue is guaranteed, the assurance of revenue is done, and all that. I remember those arguments, and I remember my brother's write-up. It's still on his Facebook wall, I'm sure, where he said that SIM-box fraud and all these things were not resolved by legislation, but by pricing.
I said it cannot only be resolved. Please,
By
I beg,
pricing.
don't misquote me.
Okay, so as
Don't misquote me.
Granted
Yes.
that you said it could not be resolved by only legislation,
Yes.
but by pricing.
No, please, I beg you, Suhini, don't misquote me.
What did you say? You just said it here
The
again.
fact of the matter is that, to a large extent, SIM boxing is a derivative of pricing arbitrage. Okay, that doesn't mean that there shouldn't be a monitoring mechanism in place. Because there are countries where there's no pricing arbitrage, where there's SIM boxing.
What was the argument about
we are moving into a different area.
That's why you don't want us.
Because
that's not the focus of the action yesterday.
Yes, he is giving some very wrong information, and it's important that I address it.
Was the introduction of the ICH.
What has this got to do with ICH?
And so the argument at the time was that, look, you don't need these legislations only. As granted that I'm going to argue that, you see, you needed to do to do an assessment of the charges, and that is how you deal with SIM-box froxing and all that.
But that doesn't take away the fact that you need a monitoring mechanism in place.
Today, as we speak, my brother is in charge and can do something about the pricing.
That's your point.
The charges.
That is your opinion.
It hasn't been tackled. Okay. He's doing what the previous government was doing, that he criticized and said it wasn't the only way of doing it. So why did we change?
You see, Roland,
do something about the pricing.
So you say you want to correct and correct.
I want to correct something that he's either misinformed or he's being economical with the truth.
Misinformed.
Okay, indeed, the action that Honorable Kweku Kwarteng took resulted in the amendment of the Electronic Communications Act. The amendment of the Electronic Communications Act introduced a number of sections, including new sections. The monitoring mechanism referred to in the subsection 4A shall not have the capability to actively or passively record, monitor, or tap into the content of any incoming or outgoing.
Essentially, that was the objective for which.
Exactly. Okay, so if the intervention of Honorable Kweku Kwarteng resulted in the amendment of the Electronic Communications Act, and the current act that we have, or the current law that we have, okay, has this provision in there, what are you confused about?
That is not true, Roland. That is not true. This case that Kweku Kwarteng and others supported was after this law had been passed.
If you read,
it was after this law had been passed. So what are you talking about?
If you read the ruling, okay, of the judge yesterday, he even made reference to this.
That there's an insulation.
Exactly.
Which compels government not to.
Exactly, Roland.
Is that not the point?
Exactly. And indeed, in the contract itself, this clause is inserted in the contract. Okay, so when you say that what has changed, okay,
said that the petitioners were just being speculative.
They were being speculative, or they were being misinformed. or they were being deliberately misingenious, or mischievous to scuttle the whole process. Okay, I mean, we've crossed that bridge.
But there are assurances.
We've crossed that bridge.
Okay.
Yes, we've crossed that bridge. So the good thing is that as far as this case, please, he's distracted me. As far as this case is concerned,
the truth is distracting you.
As far as this case is concerned, the right to privacy issue, I believe, has been dealt with. The confirmation that or the assurance that the Minister of Communications had been giving has been reaffirmed, and we are assuring Ghanaians that there's nothing like that.
It cannot happen.
It cannot happen. It will not happen. Not whilst we are there.
Okay.
It cannot happen.
All right. Now, let's go to Korle-Bu. Let's go to Korle-Bu. He's refusing referrals. Korle-Bu is refusing referrals because the decision affects surgical emergency cases. Maxwell Agbagba was there yesterday. And if you go to Korle-Bu, we're told that the public relations boss said some of the cases were moderate emergencies, which were supposed to be managed by other satellite health centers. But unfortunately, many people usually reported such cases to Korle-Bu, a situation which put further stress on its facilities. Now, Sohini, we're here because we have a serious challenge. Initially started with a 70-year-old who went to some 7 facilities. One of them, we're told, was private. But subsequently, it came to the fore that we don't have beds at the facilities. Now we said, oh, everybody can go ahead and do the treatment if the referrals are made. And so we're having everybody lying on the floor at the main referral hospitals. But at the main referral hospitals, they're also telling us that apparently cases that they even could be managed at the local level are just being referred without taking due cognizance of what the procedures are in dealing with emergencies.
Well, Roland, I want to start from a broader view.
Then we're not ending now.
I will try to be brief.
Please be brief.
You see, I've been thinking about what we truly want as Ghanaians and how we want our country to develop. We tend to get gullible as a people, maybe including myself, and allow politicians to take advantage of us and hoodwink us and sway us every time we seem to be on course to making Ghana better. I have been listening to a lot of people complain about this no-bed syndrome in our hospitals. I have listened to people complain about the bad road network in our country. I've listened to people complain about the poor infrastructure in our various schools, especially with the rollout of the free SHS. I've listened to people talk about, you know, the insanitary conditions in our markets. I've listened to people talk about the need for something to be done about all these things. And I've also reminded myself about the talk of na infrastructure we go chop. That's why I say I want to take it from a broader perspective, to find out what truly, as Ghanaians, as citizens, what is our understanding of making Ghana better? Because you see, anytime, like during the era of Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, those necessary infrastructure was put in place. They were made to seem valueless to us by his opponents. And so we opted for something that gave us instant gratification.
Hospitals.
Now you come to have a situation. You see, Roland, when you look at it in isolation, you miss the point I'm going to make. You can go and talk about hospitals. You can go and talk about hospitals. I understand that in political communication, it is said that the easiest way to deal with a government in power, to target with corruption, is when that government is engaged in infrastructure. That is in political communication. Infrastructure development lends itself easily. You read it. I mean, you can check it. I can't immediately recall. It lends itself easily to that kind of, propaganda. But Roland, we are here because we do not value the work that the previous government was doing. Look, you have a hospital. But the previous government didn't build all hospitals. You didn't build all hospitals.
We still don't have a lot of hospitals.
It didn't build all hospitals, but it was doing many hospitals. You can't do all at once, but when you see the correct necessary steps being taken, you encourage it. Now you have a hospital around Kaswa that has been abandoned. You have a hospital...
You mean built? But
built and abandoned. You have a hospital at Legon, built and abandoned. Look at the angles I'm talking about. And then you have a hospital around, Tema, the Gapua Hospital, not really fully operational. You have, at least the Dodoa Hospital is functional, and people who visit there will tell you, and you have several of those hospitals just in Greater Accra alone, scattered, that were, completed but abandoned. And you have Kolebu in the middle. And now Kolebu complains that referrals that shouldn't come to them, come to them. Yes, it will come to them because there are no hospitals in the places where the people live. And even when those hospitals were being constructed, those people were made to not to see the value of those things that were done for them.
But that's not why we are where we are.
No.
Or it's one of the reasons.
It's one of the reasons why we are where we are. Because you see, if you have a problem, how do you deal with it? We have a no-bed syndrome. Crowded. How do you deal with it? How do you want your government to do it?
Or you build new ones.
Even if you expand Kolebu in its current state, it cannot contain the pressures from around the country. But if you have the Tamale Teaching Hospital like it was started, built to standard, Sunyani Hospital, built to standard, you have the Tema General Hospital, built to standard, you are reducing the pressure that goes to Kolebu, and then the pressure, the numbers that now go to Kolebu can. But if you find a government doing that, and maybe if you get up in the morning and you maybe you are not able to get your breakfast and lunch, and somebody tells you, look, it is as a result of those infrastructure that you are not getting. Then you say, okay, get out. Now the government comes into power 2 years on. 2 years on.
It's 1 year.
It's almost 2 years.
Oh.
It's almost 2 years.
1 year, 7 months.
It's almost 2 years. And you have a situation where even the jobs that were completed in the health sector that could have solved these problems somehow, they can't even continue. I think as much as you want to blame the government, you also want to question who we are as a people and what we understand by development.
We don't seem to understand as to what we want. But we need quick solutions, at least in the interim.
And the broader
solution.
You need quick fixes.
We need quick solutions.
And that's what always leads us into trouble.
But then, in the medium to long term, we need to solve. As far as having people lying, now people are being treated on the floor because it's a floodgate. We're asked to treat everybody. People are being treated on plastic chairs while they should be lying.
Let me start with something I picked up from him when he was talking about one of the easiest ways of bringing down the government is to target with corruption.
No, that's not what I said. That's not what I said.
What he suggested.
No, that's not what I said.
Okay,
when I'm quoting you, want me to be fair.
I'm not quoting you.
I said in political communication, one of the easiest ways of targeting a government
to be corrupt
is when that government is engaged in infrastructure. And it is the easiest way to target
with corruption is when it's engaged in infrastructure.
Yes.
Okay, so it's quite interesting. And when he was giving his narrative on the KELNI-GVG, then he went into the space that he sees it as a contract that is corrupt and stuff like that. And the
civil society organizations are saying it.
So today you believe what civil society organizations say?
I've always done. Cool. I challenge them when I have to, but I've always believed what they say.
The facts of the matter are there, and I mean, the cases that are in court will obviously be ruled on. Now, on this issue of corruption, I'm sorry, of no beds. I think it's unfortunate, and I'm not sure that anybody, either in government or out of government, would be enjoying the situation that exists as is. Indeed, it was from a situation where the hospital management were not admitting people because they didn't have beds, to when the Minister of Health gave the order that the absence of beds should not be reason for patients not being attended to. And there has been this massive influx of patients, and some of them having to be treated on floors and in uncomfortable positions. And I think that ultimately we should resolve some of these issues, provide the relevant services at the various hospitals, so that the congestion that is happening at Kolebu doesn't happen. I, however, want to make a point that these other hospitals that were built by the previous administrations were not built to the standards of the medical requirements. And indeed, the Ministry of Health.
That for a fact?
The Ministry of Health has said that on several occasions.
Well,
No, Roland, again, when I talk about these matters, I refer you to your production team.
To a source.
Okay? Let your production team check.
The hospital was not built to service.
Let your production team check the reason why the Ministry of Health hasn't opened these medical facilities.
But they told us there was no generator.
Please.
And then the generators were found.
Please go ahead.
Okay? They haven't been built. They haven't been built to the right standards. And indeed, it requires some additional work to enable for
That's
these.
What they said.
So if it requires additional work, obviously it's because it hasn't been built to the standard.
But you have to say that people don't take the Minister of Health's word for what he's saying. For some of us, even
well,
though logically
that is your opinion. And,
I'm not. That's not my opinion. You just have to do a casual observation, analysis of what you think.
Roland, if I could help. Yesterday, I saw the Minister of Finance.
Please,
just to help your
presentation. I don't need your help at this time. When I finish,
you are a parliamentarian.
Can I finish what I'm saying? Okay, when I tried to interject when I thought you were misinforming. You refused. Okay, in my time I gave. Your first session, you took almost 30 minutes.
Oh, really? Okay? 30 minutes. How long is the program?
I said almost 30 minutes. Almost 30 minutes. But to the fact of the matter, the position of the Ministry of Health has been that these facilities have not been built to the right standards.
That's not true. That's not true.
The position of the Ministry of Health is that these facilities have not been built to the right standards. And for each of these facilities, they are provided a roadmap to get it up to speed or up to spec. Okay, it's a situation that we are all not comfortable with. In my constituency, okay, I have provided extra beds in Bojuasi Hospital or Bojuasi Health Post. I believe that if everybody did a bit more, we take some of this pressure.
That's what government.
Well, yeah, I mean, listen, we cannot develop this nation alone looking at what government would do. Okay. I mean, we all have an additional.
The money is here.
We all have an additional role to play in it.
Government should do it all. The money is here.
Nenye is a Deputy Minister of Communications, giving us great education on whether government will be snooping or eavesdropping into your conversations, being a point of contention of those petitioners of the court yesterday, and we know what the outcome was. And he's also Member of Parliament for the EU2 Senior West constituency. Thanks for joining me, Nenye. And then also, we have the Member of Parliament for Tamale North, Alasan Suhini, also here in the studio.